Welcome to the Living Wholehearted podcast, where we're helping leaders live with integrity.
Whether you're a mom or a CEO, you're a leader, and how you lead matters. All right, welcome back. I'm Jeff, and this is Terra, and we're here today to pick up where we left off, talking about the core values index and how we're wired. Actually hardwired for life, living, relationships. Everything that we do stems from actually that space. The lenses that we wear and see the world through. And we're excited to break down the CVI. We left off last time talking about what the tool was. We talked a little bit about the 4 core values in terms of just the metaphor that's used to describe it by the creator Lynn Taylor. But now we're really going to dive deep into the meaning behind the core values, the connections that can be gathered from it, and practically how it can really impact your life and your key relationships. And we're going to share from our journey, right, Terra, and describe what it's meant to us, but also what it's meant to others in our spheres, both in the counseling world and in the coaching space, with our friends. I mean, we've taken this thing to the streets, and we're not married to this thing, by the way, but I will say this: if you can find or help us to discover a tool that could help us to connect with relationships and bring transformation like that better, we're in. But for until then, and we're 8 years in using the CVI, we're going to continue to use that just because it's that effective.
It is. And we get a lot of people trying to tell us the latest and greatest assessment. But again, we've been around the block for a long time with assessments. Again, over 16 that we're trained in, very familiar with all the latest. And just there's nothing that beats kind of the long-term transformation that we're seeing with the CVI. So let's dive into the definitions. And if you haven't listened to the previous episode, you'll want to do that to get a little more background. But we're just going to jump right in.
Where we left off. Yeah. So the 4 core values and 4 core value types, every person has some of all 4 core values in them. And it's the unique combination of those core values for individuals that support the complexity of a human being. And there's been over 1 million CVIs taken, and there's never been a duplicate report, which is kind of an unbelievable thing. One of the first core value terms is, you've got builder, then you've got merchant, then you've got innovator and banker. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the builders and the merchants, and Terra will pick up with innovator and banker. Each core value has kind of a primary value within it and a supportive value. And builders, we've described from the previous podcast, are the action people. They're the ones that are all about action and results. All right. Now, the builder's primary value is power. Now, that's a loaded word, but the definitions of the CVI are really what allow everybody, any person, to really get behind. Power is defined as personal energy applied to make a positive difference. As a builder, the CVI transcends gender and culture and age and all of these things. And as Christians, we, of course, believe that God has made us unique each. Even identical twins have totally different learning styles, communicate differently, conflict differently, and have different fingerprints. I mean, this is supported in that. So there's plenty of men and women who are builders, who are all about taking charge and action and results. And in a good sense, the power is, again, personal energy applied to make a positive difference. That positive word right there in that definition is so important. And so other core value types are merchants, who are about relationships, our innovators, who are about assessing and solving things for people, and our bankers, who are all about facts and research and information and justice. These other types, core value types, would say to the builder, thank you. Thank you for making a positive difference for us, not just for you. That's the power of the builder.
That would be a healthy builder.
That's a healthy builder, you bet. And that power is supported by a builder's faith. Now, in the CVI, it's not a Christian instrument. The faith is not a spirituality, but the faith is the confidence, in a sense, that a builder has within them. And you see this from birth until death, of I know what to do, or I will know what to do if I don't yet. And we've seen that in our kids. We've seen that in ourselves. We've seen that in other people.
Gaines. I'm sorry if I'm putting that on him, but yeah, I'll know what to do when I get there.
Yeah, and as Terra's laughing about that attribute of a builder, it's a great reminder. We have to laugh at ourselves when we see ourselves in this assessment. Let's not take ourselves too seriously. Let's enjoy the differences and actually learn to celebrate those. And that's builder, power and faith. And both of those things have to be operating simultaneously in a person in that builder for them to be operating in the best of who they were made to be. What they're wired to contribute in their world and wherever they are. If they and another person are gathered, it's a community. It sounds a lot like two or more gathered in Jesus' name. He's there with us, right? Well, that's the reality. When two or more are gathered, you have now a core values community because you have someone with a particular wiring and another person in a particular wiring, and they have now come together. So builders are wired to give this action and results. And the community, sometimes others in the community need builders to help them to believe that they can do it. And that's their faith. And their builders are great at galvanizing others, moving them into action towards results. And when they do it the right way, when they do it by connecting with the other core value types and for their contributions, builders take that and then they help really galvanize the community across the finish line. Everybody really wins. And that's the best of a builder.
Can I speak real quick about your builder?
Sure.
And so much of what I share openly and want to share even here is that your builder has helped us cross the finish line with so many of my big dreams and my big visioning. You put feet and there's so much of what we're doing now. I mean, even this podcast, I'm like, we should do a podcast. And then actually being in this room with the equipment and doing the podcast is because you have a builder that closes that loop for us.
Thank you.
Otherwise, it'd just be a big idea that I have, and we'd still be waiting.
Thank you. Yeah, that's builders want to contribute. They want to make a difference. They want to put their hands, their personal energy to make a positive difference. And, with that, their learning style is totally different than the other three core value types. Builders need to decide and do. They don't want to lecture and talk about it forever, philosophize, dream. When a person is in builder, and here's another point, is that you can actually only be in one core value at a time. That's a big thing to remember. And I understand that some of you, even in just saying that, would be like, what? That seems so limiting. But if you can hold that with me as you're learning about the core values index from us, and as you decide to kind of get into it, if you do, remember that you can only be in one at a time. And that really so helpful to know because it allows us to begin to discern as our understanding of the definitions of each of the core values and the way we see them in ourselves and others. It allows us to actually get there quicker, to actually notice people in ourselves. Which core value am I in right now and what is needed?
Absolutely.
What can I contribute? But I can also notice quicker in others when I realize that they can also only be in one at a time. So which one are they in right now? And the cues that they give us jump off their faces, come out of their mouths by the way they communicate. And we can hit it close, faster and closer. So decide and do is the way of the builder. Boy, and you see that in children before they even have words. They're the sibling that basically uses their arm or their body to move their other sibling away from their castle that they're building at the blocks.
It's true.
Because they just want to do it, and they're kinesthetic learners. So,
they are.
But when builders go to the dark side, and each of the core values have a dark side, and they're all bad.
They're called conflict strategies.
Conflict strategies. They are simply based on when a person in their core values, so like a builder, is feeling that their core values of power and faith are not being honored. Mm-hmm. And it's immediately when that happens, anxiety shows up in that builder, male or female. And if that's not met quickly, it can turn into a fear of, and for a builder, because they're so action and results orientated, and they believe that they know what to do or will know what to do, the fear suddenly is like, oh my gosh, maybe I don't know what I'm doing. But I don't want anybody to see that I don't know what I'm doing. So to hide that or to go, and then they go to the conflict strategy of intimidation. In order for no one to perceive that I don't know what maybe I'm doing and I don't like that vulnerable feeling, I need to power up, I need to look big, I need to get loud, and I'm going to use intimidation to get that feeling away. And I might move you or others who are in my way and making me feel that way out.
Yeah.
And
not
it's not
necessarily
good.
Literally with your body, but with your tone, with your look, with your words, or just leave. You might just
slam
leave.
the door.
Yeah.
Builders' intimidation is not subtle. It's not. And I wish that wasn't my struggle, but everybody wishes that they didn't have their struggle. And as we talk about
they're
others,
all bad.
we'll have to just laugh.
Yeah, you're not alone, Jeff.
We go to get our core value needs met in an unhealthy way.
Totally.
When we are in our conflict strategy. Yeah. So that's builder.
That's builder.
All right.
Do I get to talk about merchants or you?
Oh, go ahead. Why don't you take it?
Okay. Merchant has the same with two core values, love and truth. Definition of love is, I'm going to let you say it, Jeff, because you've got it down to a
It's
T.
the personal energy. No, excuse me. That's Builder. The honoring of core values in self and in others is the merchant's love. The honoring of core values in yourself and in others.
There you go. And the truth is?
Truth is to see the way things are. It really is the merchant's subjective truth. They see it the way that they see it.
Yes, I just deferred to you just because you are so concise in your builder and being able to do an A to B communication. So I thought maybe you can give us a quicker definition on those. I'm a little more wordy, which in my merchant, that's what happens with us merchants is we use words. We're about communication. The greatest contribution that we bring to the community is relationships and vision. We see big, us merchants, and we see beyond maybe what's currently there. I use that merchant in that counseling office where I can see a person, I can see who they are beyond the behaviors and the layers and layers of dysfunction. I can see it. Maybe I love people who remodel homes. They go in, they see this old beat up house and they're like, oh, this is so beautiful. And we're all going, really? What? I don't see it. A merchant can see beyond, and they have an ability to have a vision for something that's greater. There's a bit of idealism. They're kind of like, here's how things should be. They have a lot of hope, and then they connect. They're the networkers of the community. They really are the ones who are able to say, I see you, and I see you, and I think you guys should be friends. You definitely want merchants to be the ones who are in charge of the parties, the ones they love to bring experiences, hospitality, helping people make memories. Mm-hmm. And they are the storytellers, as you referenced in our last podcast. They're the ones who love to tell the story of what has happened and where we're going. And they're often the teachers and the communicators in the community. You'll see these little merchants as children going around, and they are always talking. They have to talk it out. And what merchants really need in their learning style is to talk and listen. They need another person to be able to actually get their words out. And that's how they make sense of their world. It's less about being extroverted and introverted and just, again, about being able to have my words, my thoughts be heard and then mirrored back to me. And then there's a sense of, aha, I know what I'm finally thinking and saying.
Merchants do that verbal processing with another person. They might come to another person and say, hey, do you have a second? And right. And they'll start on and in this roundabout way talking about the thing that they're talking about. And they may actually solve their own problem. And the other person didn't say a word, but just because they were there.
Absolutely.
Is all that was really needed. A merchant learns by talking and listening, not by themselves, not with a pet, not with an inanimate object. They need people.
They do. They need people.
They go big in their vision for people. It's always for people, right?
Always for people. And journaling does help if you know that you're journaling towards somebody. So in my relationship with God, it's powerful to know that He's listening. Yeah. But if I'm just writing to write, that doesn't do the same thing. I would say that one of the most profound things that merchants bring to the table is their ability to feel the room. Mm-hmm. They live through experiencing things from a gut place, and they feel more than they probably can process or understand. Mm-hmm. But they'll walk in the room and they can tell whether somebody is really feeling happy or sad, no matter what their words say. So I call them the BS readers. They're the ones that can see right past someone who's saying, how you doing? And they're like, fine. They know whether that person's fine or not. That's the part of the truth piece. And then their love piece is, again, being able to see the best in people. It sometimes can bite us as merchants, but one of the best contributions that God has given a merchant is to be able to hold out to see the best in someone. So between those merchants and those builders, you can see where there's some conflict sometimes, because a merchant wants to talk their way through a project, and a builder just wants to get it done.
And they're very
it's not about relationship right now.
Yeah, and they're to the point type of people. Merchants are more
roundabout,
right?
Yeah. So you got communication styles, you got the goal. The merchant is all about hanging out and doing a team project, and the builder is all about just getting that project done. And so to learn how to honor one another. The conflict strategy of a merchant, when their truth and their love is not being honored, meaning there's a truth that they see in the room that's being denied.
Or in themselves.
You're not seeing who I really am. Or there's someone in the room that's not being loved well, or you're not loving me well. Their anxiety is going to rise, and their conflict strategy, that dark side that Jeff was talking about, is manipulation. And that just kills a merchant. Because no merchant wants to be called a manipulator.
Not me. Not me.
But really, what that term means is when you're loving and you don't have truth, you're not being honest. That's manipulating. Mm-hmm. And when I'm smiling at you and I'm not really telling you that you're hurting my feelings. That's manipulation. Or when I drop love and I'm only being truthful, I'm going to make you hurt the way that I hurt. I'm going to use my words to tear you down or to tell you a truth. You can't handle the truth. That's the merchant dynamic of manipulation. It can also just be, I know I've had moments in my manipulating where I'm mad at you, but I don't want to tell you I'm mad at you. So I go to the kitchen and I start slamming cabinets, and you come around and I give you the cold shoulder. I'm withdrawing my love, and you can feel that ice.
Yeah.
That's manipulation.
Hey, you got to have the both.
That was immature too. So sorry.
Hey, you said it, not me. Okay. Wait. You got to have the love and the truth working together to be the best of who you are as a merchant, right? Just like the builder has to have their power and faith as defined in the right way, working together to stay in the best and not go to intimidation.
Yes. And the best of a merchant, you really, they really know people well, and they love people well. Yeah, that's the best of a merchant.
They're so relationally intuitive, and that they should trust their gut.
They should trust their gut.
We were told even by our premarital counselor back all those years ago. We didn't have the CVI at that time, but he just made sure that he knew that you were a gut person, and that when it came to decisions, and here we were at the very beginning of our journey, not even married, but dating, taking this premarital counseling, that came out. And I'm so thankful that he had that wisdom from the Holy Spirit to speak that into our lives. Jeff, listen to Terra when she is not feeling confident about a decision that you want to go forward with. Her gut is that's an important piece for you to listen to that. Is that intuition, and he could spot it even then.
We
strong.
should send him a thank you note. Okay, anyways.
Should we talk about the other two?
Yeah, let's talk about the other two because we've got a little bit of time left.
Okay, sounds good. Sure. All right, so the next one, I'll take Innovator, and then you'll wrap it up with Banker, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, so our Innovators, the primary core values of the Innovator are wisdom and compassion. Now, again, the definitions are so important here. Wisdom is for the Innovators to see the way things are and to know what to do about it. And so many times Innovators, that's throughout their whole life, when certain situations come up, they just see what needs to be done. They see complexity. They see a lot of options immediately in wisdom, and then they have that real sense of clarity as to what needs to be done. And so they are very, in their own way, are intuitive as it relates to wisdom at times. And that happens to an Innovator. The higher the number, and in the CVI, and the numbers go from 0 to 36. Again, there's never a 0 because we are all sum of each of the 4 core values. And 36 is the cap. And all that is to say is that the higher the number, the more true that these things about that particular core value would resonate with you. The lower the number, the less true that it would resonate with you. So a high Innovator, someone who is in that, let's say 25 or 26 and above to 36 Innovator, my gosh, this is so true. It's like unconscious for them. Wisdom, to see the way things are, to know what to do about it. But when in situations, Innovators have that sense of, I'm not seeing it. When that happens for them, they shift into that supportive value, if you will, within them of compassion. Now, compassion is not empathy here. Compassion is for an Innovator to remain inquisitive and observant. And we like to say to hold out for the right decision. Innovators, when they don't see what to do right away, and anything, any environment, any that they happen to be in, or whatever problem that they're trying to solve, when that clarity doesn't come quickly, they have an internal commitment to hold out, to remain observant and inquisitive. They want to assess. They want to do their thing. And that's why an Innovator, by the way, sometimes Innovators are classic of doing this. And so are builders, of pulling away from people, but for different reasons. Now, builders pull away from people because sometimes people present an obstacle for them to getting things done that they want to do because they're so task-driven. Innovators will pull away from people at times to kind of work their process, their assessment process, to think. And sometimes that involves a big whiteboard, or sometimes it involves making a pros and cons lists, and they want to do that away from people. Once they find that solution, the one that is the most efficient pathway towards results, because efficiency is such a big thing for innovators, then they're ready to see that solution executed. And they come back to people and they say, here we go. Here's what I got. And that's an innovator's wisdom and compassion. And they work together. They have to be operating together for that innovator to be the best of who they are. The learning style of the innovator, is different certainly than from the builder of decide and do, and of the merchant of talking and listening. The innovator learning style is based in assessing and solving. It is that pull away, and I need to get my mind on this. I want to think this through. And that is how they actually learn. Sometimes they'll do that with people. I mean, brainstorming at times with others is a part of an innovator's learning style. Isn't there a time for that? You're a high innovator.
A healthy innovator. I would say a healthy innovator says, I am a high innovator, and I have to work to stay in the best of myself. And it says there's other people that have wisdom in the room too. I'm not the only one.
Right.
And so part of the compassionate side, if I stay balanced to say wisdom, I've got something to offer. I've got some solutions here, but also you do too. Yeah. So let's use the two of us or the three of us or the five of us to come up with the best solution. Yeah. That's the compassion side that says I'm not the only one in the room.
Okay. Well, and innovators are committed to slowing down to look for that right solution because that's worth it, actually. And you can see their actual contributions to their community, to their world, wherever two or more gathered, is assessment solutions. They are great problem solvers, have been their whole lives.
Everybody seeks us out for that.
People have looked to you as high innovators to solve problems for mostly your whole life. Now, that's the one thing we should also say is that can be a tricky point. Innovators, amongst all the other core value types, builders, bankers, merchants, they're ones that actually, because they're good at solving problems, can take too many on.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, that they're feeling buried or in the paralysis of analysis. And it can go even further than that, can't it?
Well, I'd say that because there isn't a problem we can't solve if you give us enough time, that we can hang in there too long. Yeah. And we give situations and people too long of a chance. And so in terms of the four core values, we're the most prone to lacking boundaries and knowing when it's time to call it quits because we just want to solve that problem.
Boy, that can go from a task and in a workspace, but it can also go deeper into key relationships where an innovator, male or female, could hang in too long in the wrong kind of relationship and start thinking that it's just up to me. I got to figure this out. I'm a solution person. If I just find that solution, and that's where an innovator can get lost, right?
Yeah, and because innovators are more gray, nothing is really all or nothing for an innovator. So there's always context, and we're always like, well, maybe if the weather changes, then maybe the situation will change. And so that gray part is the gift of that innovators bring, and that they can hang out in the messy spaces of life.
Complexity.
The longest, yes.
Yep.
And you want us there because we're going to be the most patient. However, that patience can turn on us and it makes us sick. Yeah. And we can sometimes, and so discerning that is where I'll speak first for me and how I coach others, especially high-level leaders, but is learning to lean into people like you who are a builder, who it is a little bit more clear and it is a more all or nothing or black and white thinking, and the gift of the two of us where I can say, hey, I've got 10 options here and I have been hanging in here for way too long. And you say, you just need to go with B. And if I trust you in my community and in our marriage, we do that so often. And in my Courageous Girls group and with my friends, with my Living Wholehearted team, we lean into each other.
Yeah.
So I know we'll talk about that more in our next episode, but I just wanted to say that in terms of those of us who lack boundaries can lean into other wiring types who it's just a little more clear for them.
And as a builder, I mean, the reality is that I don't see the complexity. I have a 15 innovators, so that's kind of like in the midpoint.
You can go there with me.
I access it, but I can't hang in there as long as you can, or it doesn't come as quickly. I have to shift to that direction. As a builder in our marriage, I'll come to you. I've learned that before I get started in launching out into building something or whatever it might be that I might be doing, there's wisdom in checking in with you to see, hey, here's what I'm wanting to do. And is there anything that you can think of that would help make this better? And when I do that, how does it feel to you when I come to you to ask as an innovator, ask for your wisdom?
Oh, it feels so good. And I'm just laughing because that was that right there, you're naming the crux of our major issue in our marriage for years. So we'll talk about that when we talk about conflict in the next episode. Let's finish with banker real quick, and then we'll wrap this one up.
Well, so that you can see that even now, as we've talked about all three of core values that we've covered, builder, merchant, and innovator, just how they can complement one another, but boy, how they can rub against each other. Yes. And we misread and misunderstand and take so many things so personally that aren't even meant to be personal. And that's one of the beauties of this tool is that it allows us to say that, okay, this is not personal. I mean, the builder coming at the high merchant isn't just mean all the time.
And it isn't always our stories. I think that's where some of the other assessments are focused in on our story and our environment. This is actually God's design for us. And I can't argue with God in how he made Jeff and how he made me and how he made our daughters. So let's finish with the banker, because the banker is, I think, one of the most thoughtful of the 4 core values. And here's why. Their 2 core values are knowledge and justice. And knowledge, another word for that would maybe be excellence. Sometimes bankers prefer that word. It really is this ability or this valuing facts. Is there an exact definition?
Yeah, I mean, knowledge is the how and why of things.
Oh, yes, I did know that.
And it is that curiosity that.
Yeah, and they really do want to know the facts behind how and why. And then their justice is, does everybody in the community have what they need? There's this need for equity in the community. And whether that's resource-based, I mean, they are constantly looking and feeling the unfairness in the community. And that is needed. And it is a beautiful reflection of who God is as well, because God sees the injustices of this world and is also just as much as he is loving. Bankers and their knowledge and their justice, their greatest contribution is to be able to...
It's information, and it's the conservatism, the conservation of resources. Boy, they have a ton of information that they can hold, and they're
like a Rolodex in their brain.
And they can pull it up, a historical record like that, and go into detail. And then they're passionate about conserving resources, making sure that people have what they need.
Yeah, and so the funny part about bankers is I always say you don't want to play them in Trivial Pursuit because their brain cannot help but hold on to data. They will remember your favorite chocolate bar if you mention it.
Even
your
once.
Latte. Yeah. Once. I mean,
a year ago.
Yes. They hold on to details. They walk into a room and they cannot help but see where something was moved or changed. If there's a chip on the wall, they're going to notice it. They're the controllers. And for that reason, they bring excellence to the community. They make everything a little bit tighter and more accurate. And that gift is really powerful for us as a community.
But it's often misread, though, isn't it?
It can be misread as critical. And honestly, when a banker is not feeling honored, they do become. Their dark side is aloof judgment. Their conflict strategy is to pull away and to say, I'm not going to give you the facts. I'm going to let you fail. And they have now used the litany of things they've remembered. They're now being held against you in the court of law. And they will definitely remember. For banker, forgiveness is one of the hardest things. And this is a whole other topic we can talk about. But I, as a clinician working through great betrayals and just the unforgiveness in our lives, I really have to sit with every detail and every fact and every wrong that has been wrong for a banker to feel like they're ready to move forward. They also need to see shift and change and justice restored in order for that to be, for them to be ready to really move forward in forgiveness and then restoration, which are 2 different things, whole other topic. But bankers are they're just so thoughtful and they will remember. I have lots of banker friends, love them, and they know my schedule better than I know my schedule. And they'll text me to say, hey, I hope you're enjoying your time in Waco. And that little piece that I told them I was going to do. And I'm like, how did you know? And I feel kind of like, are they writing everything down? But they just remember. And they're so thoughtful to show up.
Yeah.
So to love a banker or to show up for a banker is to also do the same, to be able to remember their birthday, to be able to follow through on the exact time that I said I'm going to show up, I'm going to be there at noon.
They meant it.
They meant at noon, not noonish, like some of the other core values.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to say about the banker?
I mean, just that in the organizational space that they and actually in any setting, but I try to tell and communicate this openly with everyone in a room to say that bankers are often missed. They are often not the ones that are getting the attention or making sure that their points are coming across and communicating out loud. They're more likely to be waiting to be called upon for their facts and information. They're sitting on a gold mine. Bankers are a gold mine of historical record of information, of facts, and they want to give that and share that with others to make sure that others, no matter if it's a family, a marriage, a community service team, a small group, or a business team, have what they need. And so I would just say that leaders particularly pay attention to those that are your bankers who are often missed, and come to them in advance. If you're going to ask a banker to share anything because they're sitting on so much information and facts and logic and accuracy and commitment to excellence, use them, but come to them in advance. They don't like to be put on the spot.
Because their reading style their learning style is to read and assess. They
read and analyze.
Read and analyze.
Yeah.
There's my lack of banker right there.
Yeah, it's okay.
Changing the detail.
But in terms, much either.
Yeah. But being able to actually see the data and read through it and have time to think about it is super important for a banker.
Yeah, then they're ready to share it, but only then. Like to
be put on the spot is so honoring.
In their sense of justice for themselves, they'll say, "I don't know." It's not that they're dumb. No, they actually are going to go get the information, find it by reading and analyzing. Then they're ready to share. So you honor them by coming in advance. And you also honor them by, in a group setting, when they've experienced something and all the merchants are really excited and the innovators are connecting and the builders got what they needed, the bankers are going to do most of their processing even after that experience. And so there's a lot of wisdom in coming back as a leader to those bankers to say, hey, what did you notice a week or some days after? I don't want to miss that. They're unlikely to share that on their own. So you love them well by going and asking them, hey, what did you notice? What connections did you make? What are you remembering, and how what we just talked about relates to things that we had talked about before? It's an awesome way of noticing and honoring the core values in bankers by doing just that. So there we go. We've got 4. We've gone into some detail about all 4. And next time we should probably make some great connections between these values, how practically they work in our different environments of at home, at work, and at play. And then
conflict resolution.
And then dive into the conflict stuff, because conflict is not something to run away from. It's normal. It's healthy to work through conflict. And it brings us closer together when we do that, right?
Absolutely. It's throwing kindling in the fire to make it deeper and burn longer.
All right. So we're looking forward to talking with you again next time. And until then, thanks for joining us in the effort to shrink the gap between the values that we espouse and the values that we live and practice. That's what we're doing here at Living Wholehearted.
And if you are liking what you're hearing, why don't you follow us at Living Wholehearted on Facebook or Instagram? You can also check us out at My Courageous Girls. And you can follow me at Terra Mattson, and you can DM me if you'd like to ask us questions. What do you want to hear more about? We are excited because there is so much we're going to be unpacking over the next month. Thank you for joining us in being a leader committed to shrinking the integrity gap between the values we espouse and the values we actually live out in practice.